Welcome to the Change Leadership Conversations. Today I have with me Krista Schaber-Chan. She's a managing partner and co-founder of Harbinger SCR. Harbinger SCR have been one of our partners for our previous master classes, and I'm really excited to have Krista with us today. Welcome, Krista.
Thank you, Yvonne. I'm very happy to be here.
And why I'm excited to have you here today is because as a partner, I know we share the same values, and that's why we've partnered in the past to do the master classes we had. We did the practical change management master class. And what we do with all of our partners before working with them is we share the same values. And that's something that we do well with Harbinger when it comes to our belief in what change leadership means and the value of change leadership, not just to put the person in the position, but change leadership as a whole to everyone, regardless of your level when you're working within an organization. Before we get into all of that nitty-gritty, because we're going to discuss that today, Krista, tell us a little bit about what you do and what Harbinger does.
Sure. So I'll start off with Harbinger. So we've actually just celebrated our 5th anniversary. So we're
congratulations.
Yes, thank you. So Harbinger helps clients lead their organization and their people through business transformations in a nutshell. I know that's kind of a very generic way of phrasing it, but that's essentially what we do. And we do this, we offer our clients a suite of change management and learning services and solutions that drive lasting benefits by supporting user adoption. You know that the key to good change and good lasting change is we need to change behaviors, and it's the user adoption piece that is really, really key.
I like that. Changing behaviors. Talking about changing behaviors, behavior is one thing that is changing very drastically right now with the whole of the pandemic that is being experienced. Behavior is changing. Organizations are changing. What are some of those changes that you're seeing around you with your clients, even within your organization? And what do you see as the biggest challenge, actually? I think we can all see so many changes, but what do you see as some of the biggest challenges to changing behavior right now?
A couple of really interesting things that I'm observing is usually we like to say change takes time and change is a journey, and it takes a long time to get people to do what we want them to do. And I have to say I'm quite fascinated by human behavior and how we can actually react and pivot really rapidly and really quickly when there is that really burning sense of urgency. And I think that's one of the things that I've noticed recently is people have had to make drastic changes in how they work, where they work, what they're doing, how they're handling their families while working. And they've done it literally overnight, literally. And organizations also are supporting this kind of change. And it makes me wonder a little if our way of, saying, oh, this takes time and people need to get used to the idea and whatever, I wonder if that's actually true. I think it is. I do think it is. And I think this is a very unique situation that is driving, obviously, people to make this change very quickly.
You actually raise a great point there in terms of behavior, and it's saying it takes time, and now people seem to be changing quickly. 2 observations is, one, yes, people are changing very quickly because they feel they have no choice, but there are still some people who are resisting this change, organizations who have refused to lock down. And I'm not saying that it's easy to make that decision, but there are organizations who have chosen or choose or are not happy about it, and I understand why. But what about where you're asking people to stay at home and in change management terms, they're resisting the change? Is that not so typical of what we experience with changes in organizations where some people will resist the change? Why is it that people have changed very quickly in this one? Yes, maybe because they don't have any choice. And maybe it's that the way that we need to go in terms of when it comes to change, because change is happening at a faster speed than we will ever imagine, and it's not going to get any slower. So what's the best way to help people change their behavior quickly?
So the things that I've noticed as well, the organizations that are making this pivot or this change very rapidly and successfully are the ones where not only are the leadership team are actually embodying and leading that change and saying, I'm doing this too. And they're adapting and adopting new technologies really quickly. And they're also supporting their people and saying, it's okay. I know you have kids at home. We have to homeschool and we can reschedule. We can make these meetings at a different time, or we know you might work at weird hours now, more so than maybe before. So I think obviously, just like any change, leadership support is very, very important. The other thing I'm noticing, and even within Harbinger, is our team members are really stepping up and taking a more active role in leading some of this change. We have this phrase where we're like the shoe cobbler whose children have bad shoes, right? So as an organization that tries to lead people through change and organizations through change, and we tell them what technologies are better and how to use those technologies, and here's the tips and tricks on how to use those technologies, we realize that, we're not actually maximizing, we were using them, but we weren't also maximizing the use of Teams or Zoom or whatever. And so it was actually our team of individuals in our organization who put up their hand and said, hey, let me figure out how to do that and we'll teach you. And I think that's great. That is the kind of leadership that we need. It's leading without title. It's taking an active role and knowing that you're in it together. This change is happening to everyone. So everyone taking kind of that initiative to do their part and do something really productive.
I love that example you just gave in terms of someone stepping up to say, I can do this, or your team members taking the lead. And that's a question that I often get asked, or people push back on and saying, I don't have the position, so how can I be a change leader? So you tell me, what are some of the things that people can do without the position to be leading change right now, whether for their organizations or where they feel they don't have the authority or power?
I mean, it's always a tricky situation because every organization is a little bit different. And to your earlier comment, there's some organizations who aren't allowing their people to work from home and they just don't really feel that they can do it. I think the one thing that people can do to really be that leader of change, to be that change leader who isn't leading with authority, but they're leading because they have influence, is believe in yourself, because if you have influence in the organization and you are well liked and your peers listen to you, you already are a leader. You are already leading those people. And a lot of actual, leaders who have leadership with title, they will actually be quite grateful for someone to take on some responsibility that is just constantly on their shoulders. In the traditional sense of change management, we always want senior leaders, executives to shoulder the burden of leading this change. And it is the right thing. It's the right thing to get them involved. It's the right thing for them to stand up and say, I believe in this change. But it's a lot of work for them. So having people at the grassroots levels or individual contributor who people will naturally follow, it's great for them to step up and actually take that lead. And I think it's possible because leaders actually do embrace it. And, and having belief in yourself and knowing that you have something valuable to offer really will lead to that role of being that change leader.
Yeah. You raise a point and remind me of one of my favorite quotes by John Maxwell. And it says, leadership is not position or title. Leadership is influence. And that's one of the ways that whether you're at grassroots level, you're at the middle, or even at the top, having influence is the biggest thing, because that's how you can even lead your own leader in terms of demonstrating to them some of the actions that they could be taking and help educate them and help support them, because leaders in positions are always looking for support, and having people at the grassroots level that can step up and say, I can do this, or let me do this, or this is the way we can do it, or bring in ideas or get creative, is often very valuable. And oftentimes people are looking to rise or move up in their organization and into what you would call a leadership position. And that's how you get recognized as being ready to be a leader, by demonstrating some of this leadership skills right now, by helping lead and drive this change. So you raise a great point there with influence. I love that example.
Well, and another point. So recently, I've been reached out to by a few different people within my LinkedIn network asking if I have any tips and tricks on how to manage up. And I thought it was fascinating because all the stuff that is out there right now on social media and everywhere, every blog I read is all about how do you lead change? What is a leader going to do to step up and lead change? And I haven't seen that much actually about how you manage upward. And I thought it was a great question. And again, I'll use the example of us, Harbinger, and having one of our associate consultants actually step up. He anticipated our needs. He said, hey, I think we're going to need this. I know you're too busy to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out, and then I'm going to teach you how to do it. And that, I think that's a big part about being a change leader, is also how do you anticipate what is needed? And that's really also a key thing to that.
Yeah, and you raised also the fact around empowering others. And that's what a change leader does. You not only anticipate, you're not only forward looking, but you're also able to empower other people. And empowering other people doesn't mean empowering people that you lead or your colleagues. It could again be empowering managing up, so leading your own boss and empowering them to be able to make the right decisions. It's easy to sit back and say, oh, this leader should do this or that leader should do this. And we've seen a lot of demonstration of other people in the community stepping up as change leaders. People who, before the government said, start to do hand sanitizer or start to do ventilators or order them to do things, they were stepping up to say, we're going to change our manufacturing process around. We're going to start producing hand sanitizers or ventilators or doing things to help. And they weren't in the government or that leadership position to drive the country forward, but they could step up as change leaders to make a difference as well. And those are some great examples of how you can lead change from anywhere you are and support change.
Yeah, exactly.
So great examples there. And outside of some of these skills that we've mentioned, or what it means to manage up or lead from the middle or lead from a grassroots level, what are some of the critical skills that you think will be important right now as we go through this pandemic and come out of this pandemic into what would be, let's call it the aftermath? Not necessarily the new normal. Not everybody likes that term, the new normal. So I'm calling it the aftermath. So what are some of those critical skills that you see as important?
Oh, goodness. This one's very hard, and it's not maybe not tangible or measurable, but being able to actually take a step back and look at things objectively, because any kind of change impacts at the individual level. No matter how big the change is, you always have to look at the individual and see what they're going through, what they're feeling. And I think it's important as an individual that we are also taking accountability for ourselves and kind of taking that step back, breathing, and realizing that this is going to be a different way of doing things. But what can I do? And one of the first things I can do is be calm, try to look at it rationally. I know it's not always easy. That's probably one of the biggest skills that someone could, if they're not innately capable of that, that's something that we can learn and practice. I think some of the other things that people can do is, again, not easy, be flexible. Try not to be as rigid or make decisions on things because of how things used to be. Just because it used to be that way doesn't mean it's the right way going forward. So have an open mind, be flexible about things, but also have an opinion and voice it. And don't be afraid to use your voice. We all have a voice, and we should all express it, and it should be valued and respected. And also understand that if you have a voice and you express that it will be respected and understood, but that might not be the approach that's moved forward with, if that makes sense.
Oh, for sure. But it starts with you voicing it, because if you don't say it, it's not going to float anywhere.
And you might have a perspective that no one else thought of.
And that again comes back to the culture within an organization, whether as a leader, where what we're doing or the actions we're taking, is that creating an environment for people to be able to voice their opinions? Or are we creating an environment whereby people feel, I don't want to say this because if I fail or if it goes wrong or if my idea is not accepted, I look foolish or I look silly, and that stops people from talking. So it comes down to culture again in terms of
Absolutely.
One of the things which we have been talking about, culture and values, is what's really going to drive how people respond or react to this change or what it's going to mean afterward. Is there any way that somebody could have prepared for something like this? Nobody ever expected or saw this, but how do people prepare for change?
Oh,
Let's have a scale,
that's
because
a big question.
the scale of this change is huge. But one of the things we say at the Change Leadership is helping leaders to prepare to lead and respond to change better and faster. How do people do this? How could someone have prepared for even just a teeny little bit of this? Or how could they even prepare for a lot of the changes that we see coming with the fourth industrial revolution, AI, the robotics, and the disruptive environment that we're going to face ourselves, where change is unending?
So I think being able to prepare for those changes that are especially technology based should theoretically actually be easier. Obviously, preparing for changes that impact people at a personal level or at a health level is very hard because you don't know when that's coming. But on a technology level, I look at some of the organizations that were able to pivot very, very easily and very quickly to this virtual working, work from home kind of environment. It's because they actually did plan ahead. They did have a plan. It maybe wasn't a fully thought through plan or completely fleshed out, but they did have a plan of what they would do to support people if they couldn't work in the office. Or they already had policies in place that said, yeah, you're allowed to work from home. So people were their people were already quasi prepared. And so the change or the disruption wasn't quite as hard or as big. When we look at the fourth industrial revolution and AI, it's inevitable. It's not coming, it's here. And what I have seen is how many organizations are actually not even really aware that this change is going to happen and that it's going to disrupt their workplace. So I think the information is out there, the articles are out there, the data is out there, educating yourself about the change and what the impact is going to be. And I know it can probably be scary for people because sometimes it just, it's going to be a big change. It's going to be a financial change. It's going to be a change to structure, organization. You're going to have to retrain people. It can maybe blow into this huge thing, but if you take it a step at a time and put a plan together, I think that's the best approach. And like I said, I'm a little surprised by maybe how many organizations were ill prepared to have a virtual workplace.
You know what? I'm going to say something a little bit controversial.
Okay.
And say maybe people could have been prepared for this pandemic. Everybody says you could not have prepared for it, but let's look back to 2005 when George Bush spoke about the eventuality of a pandemic flu happening and how we needed to start to prepare for it. Let's go back to when even Bill Gates spoke about how we need to prepare for a pandemic just coming out of the Ebola virus we had. So there are people who have been talking about a pandemic happening and having to be prepared. But people, just like they think about the fourth industrial revolution, see it's too far ahead. No, it's not going to impact me. My business is a little bit different. Oh, it's a concept right now. So could we really have been prepared for this? Maybe to a certain extent, or I don't know. I mean, the jury is still out. But it's just interesting to me, and it only just occurred to me that when we think that there are people who have been sounding the trumpet for a while and saying a pandemic could come, and if a pandemic comes, how prepared are we to deal with it, telling us things we should start to put in place, research we should start to do, and it suddenly happens and we seem not prepared. Or let's think to when the first call to the pandemic was sometime in December. It wasn't a pandemic then, but we started to hear of these things and we thought, oh, not me, not us, not America. It's so far out. It's in China.
Yeah.
And even when it started to happen in North America, Africa was like, oh, nobody has had any incident of this. So it's not us. It's not something that happens here. And they didn't start to prepare until it hit them and it's too late. So mindset wise, why do we do this? Why is it easy for us to focus on the present than to think into the future, to prepare for eventualities of changes that may come and to lead it? And that I would say is a key leadership skill. But Why is it that people don't do that?
Oh, that's the $1,000,000 question, Yvonne.
I know I put you on the spot. And I think it's just, personally, if I had to answer it, is just so many changes that are always being thrown at us. There's so much we have to deal in the present. And when you think of who a true change leader is, a change leader is somebody who is visionary,
Yep.
who thinks in the future, who is not focused on the now. A change leader is somebody, when I see our leaders in Canada, they're not just thinking right now, how do we manage the flu symptoms, or how do we cure people, or how do we deal with present situation. They're also having to think, what does this mean for our economy in a year's time, in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time? And they're also trying to do something now. So maybe the answer is in the fact that a change leader has to be visionary and think big picture, as opposed to being just focused on the present, which is business as usual.
For sure. I think the best change leader is a visionary. Often they might be seen as crazy,
Yes, crazy.
or sometimes I have worked with some really very thoughtful, visionary leaders who were not taken seriously, and they weren't able to garnish the support or the influence that they actually deserved.
Hmm.
And I think part of it is fear. It's a little bit of fear. Our natural instincts as humans is to deal with what we know, and what we know is happening today. This is what we see right now, is what we know. It's our comfort zone. We can deal with this in the moment. We can manage this because we know it. The stuff that's in the future, or that we are foreseeing that might happen, it's not tangible, so it's hard to measure, it's hard to plan for. It doesn't mean we shouldn't. Back to your point about the pandemic, I don't know if you remember with SARS, early 2000s, it was not this bad. It did not hit a global level, but it impacted Canada quite greatly. And I know that the healthcare industry really learned from that. I have friends that are in healthcare, and they have actually been able to comment that they've been able to react to COVID very quickly, and that their protocols in the hospital are excellent because of what they learned from SARS. So I think there are leaders out there who are visionary, who are planning ahead. I think it's just hard on such a mass scale.
It is. It is hard to plan ahead when right now you're thinking of the solutions you have to put in place today. And that's again where you find the difference between somebody who is managing change and somebody who is leading change. And the managing is dealing right now. So there's so many of us who are managers right now. And we need to start to think about being leaders, which is that big picture, visionary thinking. And one of the things I feel is that perhaps this is really a wake up call to all of us to see the value and importance of that big picture thinking, being visionary, being open minded, and being open to the fact that change is happening and change is now, and we always need to be ready and prepared for it. I'm almost one of those people that say one thing and seems as if I'm saying the other, because I say a lot live in the moment,
Mhm.
because today is just all we have that is promised to us.
Yep.
But at the same time, there has to be something where we're also planning for tomorrow, because we hope to see tomorrow.
And we want tomorrow to be the best it can be.
Yes. So it's having to, yes, make the best of today, but at the same time, plan for what the future could be. So it's a combination of those two things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What's the final word you could leave for anybody who is listening right now? What do you want to say to them?
I will just echo the thought that anyone, I think, can be a change leader. You look at Greta Thunberg and her capability and what she was able to do for the environment. She's a 16-year-old girl who, yeah, she probably has some backing and media and parents and whatever, but really she was the face of it, and she got laughed at, she got booed, she got derogatory comments, but she just persevered and she believed in what she was doing. So I think as a change leader, and for those visionary leaders, if you believe in what you're doing, it will make an impact. You will eventually be heard. So that's probably the biggest. That'll be my closing statement. Believe in your ability to lead. Believe in what you want to change and stick to it.
I love that. I do love that. It's all about taking the very first step. And that's what change leadership is about. Taking that first step, and you build the momentum and everything will come. Thank you so much, Krista, for being part of today's session. Loved having you and love having you guys as partners with the change leadership. And if anybody wants to contact you, we will be providing the details. You can connect with Krista on both Twitter and LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn. I do have a personal Twitter account as well as our Harbinger account. So either would work as well. We have a Harbinger LinkedIn as well as my personal LinkedIn account. So
Okay.
happy to
Yeah.
anyway.
We will make those details available, and I'm sure folks can see it on the screen already. But thank you so much for being part of today's conversation.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. It was a pleasure.